Hey people, John V again here from Phone Arena. You're watching our in-depth video comparison between the Samsung Galaxy Note LTE and the LG Nitro HD. Now, back in December, the LG Nitro HD was by far the largest AT&T handset at that time, but now that the Galaxy Note LTE is here, you could just tell a difference in size. They're very similar to one another. They offer 4G LTE connectivity and also dual-core processors, but you're probably wondering which is the device to go with. Actually, we don't find one handset to be better looking than the other in terms of design, just because they're pretty conventional looking. They're both constructed out of plastic all around, decent construction, both of them. Relatively skinny by today's standards, but the Galaxy Note LTE is, more weighty than the Nitro HD. They have the same textured back covers, giving them good rigidity, so you good grip in the hand. But the Nitro HD is easier to handle, just because the Galaxy Note LTE is just a beast of a phone in terms of size. That could be a handicap for some people, but honestly that's what gives it its allure. It's a very fascinating device, just because you typically don't see a device that size that often. Obviously, the Samsung Galaxy Note LTE has the larger display. It's a 5.3-inch WXGA Super AMOLED display on there versus a 4.5-inch True HD IPS display of the Nitro HD. Now, resolution's pretty much close to the same. It's 720 by 1280 versus 800 by 1280 on the Galaxy Note. Honestly, a good amount of detail, fine text, is more legible than with both, just because of their high resolution, so no problem whatsoever. But the biggest difference is, of course, just the color production. With the Super AMOLED panel of the Galaxy Note, it just produces those saturated color tones. Tends to be a little bit, unrealistic at times, and whites tend to have a bluish tinge. Whereas the IPS display of the Nitro HD is a lot more realistic looking and accurate with its color tones. Both exhibit great viewing angles, so no problems at all. Pretty sharp, but in the end, it's just the sheer size and also the glow of the saturated colors of the Galaxy Note that really stands out. Since the Nitro HD boasts 3 Android capacitive buttons versus 4 on the Galaxy Note, it's less prone to accidental presses. Both handsets offer front-facing cameras. It's a 1.3 megapixel camera on the Nitro HD, while the Galaxy Note has a larger 2 megapixel one. With their dedicated power buttons, they're very pronounced and have a good responsive feel, so we didn't have any issues with either of them. At the same time, we like the responsiveness of their respective volume rockers, but the Nitro HD just seems to be a little bit flat to the touch. On top of offering the obvious, such as data connectivity and charging with their micro USB ports, you also gain video out functionality with the aid of an optional MHL adapter. In the rear, both handsets feature 8 megapixel autofocus cameras, able to shoot 1080p videos, and you also have a single LED flash with both. After removing their back covers, we gain access to their batteries. It's a 2500 mAh one versus an 1830 mAh. The Nitro HD is preloaded with a 16GB micro SD card, whereas the Galaxy Note doesn't have one preloaded, but comes with 16GB of internal storage. And finally, last thing worth pointing out is that the Galaxy Note LTE features the S Pen. It's housed inside of it, and what it offers is just the ability to take notes a lot easier, and also it could be used as a navigational tool. Naturally, we're forgiving to find these handsets running Android 2.3 Gingerbread, so not the most up-to-date experience out there, but nevertheless, you have all the core aspects of Android. On one hand, it's the customized interface of TouchWiz versus the LG Optimus Skin. They're both very similar. They offer the same level of personalization with their vast widgets. Their app panels are arranged in a similar grid-like view, but the Galaxy Note LTE and TouchWiz just has a little bit more functionality, specifically with the gallery and even the web browser. They utilize these gestures where you place two fingers on the handset and you can tilt it up and down to zoom in, zoom out. So that's pretty nice. And you also have the functions of the S Memo, which incorporates with the S Pen, so you could take down notes. You could even draw stuff, which is something you don't typically find with the other handsets. Since these two bad boys are packed with 4G LTE radios, they share the same exact dual-core processor. Specifically, it's a 1.5 GHz dual-core Snapdragon processor, an S3, and they're coupled with 1 GB of RAM. And honestly, they both offer a high level of performance with the static wallpaper here. You can tell the movements are pretty fluid and instantaneous, very minimal evidence of lag in other operations, such as kinetic scrolling, pinch zooming in the gallery. Pretty quick with both handsets. So we didn't really have too much of an issue there, but we do notice that when you switch it to a live wallpaper, we do notice some levels of choppiness with their movement. It's not to the point annoying, but it's just it is quite noticeable when you're just moving between the home screen panels. Quickly show you that here. and you can just tell just some choppiness. It's not quite as instantaneous. You do notice some choppiness with it, but in any event, it's still tolerable enough. When it comes to typing messages, we didn't have any issues using either handset. Obviously, the Galaxy Note's graced with a larger layout here, more spacious than the Nitro HD, but nevertheless, they both exhibit the same level of responsiveness, so they're able to keep up with us. But the Galaxy Note also has the option of using the S Pen to actually input text as well. In terms of some of the core organizer apps, their functionalities are pretty much unchanged. You get the same level of features, but with the Galaxy Note though, for example, if we go to the email application, the unique thing about it is that if you put it to landscape, you get this two-panel view, which is a little bit better in terms of organization. You get your inbox and also the content of your email right there, so it's very useful, and you also see it too in the calendar as well. No doubt that we love the fact that both handsets have 4G LTE connectivity, so you get really fast data speeds, both download and upload. But beyond that, as far as the web browsing performance, we actually prefer the Galaxy Note LTE just because it seems like it's more responsive and fluid with its operation. You tell kinetic scrolling and pinch gestures, there's just better fluidity found with the Galaxy Note. When it comes to playing music, we actually prefer the music player interface of the Nitro HD over the Galaxy Note, just because when you place the handset in landscape, you get this very cool looking 3D carousel, which gives it a lot of eye candy with its presentation, whereas the Galaxy Note just remains to have a very conventional looking approach. As far as audio quality, they're both the same, pleasant sounding. They're not the strongest out there, but more than adequate. On top we have the LG Nitro HD. In the bottom, of course, you can tell the larger display being the Galaxy Note LTE. They're both playing the same video here, which is encoded in DivX 1920 by 1080 resolution. So 1080p, you can tell no stutter whatsoever, no slowdown, good detail, nice punchy colors with both. But if we had to pick, we'd actually go with the Galaxy Note, just for the simple reason that our eyes are more comfortable with the large display it has to offer, and also the punchier looking colors. It's actually very difficult to say which handset has the better quality with their 8 megapixel cameras. On top you have the Nitro HD samples, the bottom being the Galaxy Note LTE. An advantage with the Nitro HDs, when you're taking shots against the sun, it seems to better adjust for exposure, whereas the Galaxy Note tends to have a harder time with brighter areas. It tends to overexpose them. But with the Galaxy Note, when you take it indoors under artificial lighting, it just seems better able to capture the more natural looking colors versus the Nitro HD, but either way, both are really good looking. Additionally, we like the look of their 1080p high definition video recording just because they share a lot of commonalities. For example, a very smooth capture rate, good details, color seems to be pretty much on par to one another. But the one issue that we find is just with the Nitro HD, it seems like when you pan very quickly, it seems to show a lot more artifacting going on. But aside from that, they're pretty much similar. Between the two, the Galaxy Note seems to have the slight advantage when it comes to calling quality, just because with its earpiece, voices are distinctive and robust, whereas the Nitro HD voices are a little bit on the grainy side. And when we switch these into speakerphones, they're both kind of muffled in tone. Just by looking at the Galaxy Note's sheer size, it's going to scare some people away when you think about battery life, but in our testing, it's surprisingly the better one. Under HSPA Plus connectivity, we're able to get close to 2 days out of normal usage on the Galaxy Note, whereas the Nitro HD, it's less than 1 day. Simply, there's just something about the Samsung Galaxy Note LTE that we find very compelling. It could be just the fact that it's just obnoxiously large versus any other smartphone out there, but its Super AMOLED display really also is an attention grabber for us. Not only that, but we find a lot of usefulness with its S Pen. Not only is it great for taking notes, but also for drawing as well. Beyond that, though, they're very similar with their performances. For example, dual-core processors, they're both very quick with their movements. Taking photos and videos are pretty much the same, but we do find battery life to be a lot better on the Galaxy Note versus the LG Nitro HD. And of course, finally, it's going to come down to pricing. It's $300 for the Galaxy Note LTE right now, and when the Note came out, the LG Nitro HD was chopped in half in price. It's now only $99.99 to $100 for the 2-year contract. So $300 versus $100, a big big disparity there in terms of pricing. You get pretty much the same functionality at two, but in terms of just the sheer presence, $300 you're really getting, you know, something that's a little bit more than just a smartphone in itself, and that's why it probably seems to be the more compelling of two, even despite the fact that it's priced a lot more versus the Nitro HD. So if you'd like to learn more about either handsets, you can check out our website, guys, phonearena.com. This is John V. As always, till next time.